I'm here today with Sammy Ravelo, who is the founder and president of the Dominican-American Republican Club. And I was planning to go to an event that the club was hosting uh, to cover it. They were slated to host mayoral candidate Curtis Sliwa, and then I heard that the event was called off. So I was able to get in touch with Sammy Ravelo to talk a little bit about what happened there because I haven't heard the story yet. I just know that it got postponed or canceled, and I'd like to hear about what happened, and I'd also just like to hear about um, what the club's feelings are about Curtis Sliwa and what your thoughts are on the mayoral race and your priorities, the priorities of members of the club in this election.
All right, great. Well, thank you for that introduction. Yes, I, along with a group of what I call patriots, we founded the Dominican-American Republican Club as a result of all the noise that was being that we had during the last election, during when Trump was running against Kamala Harris. Obviously, a lot of us in our community were tired of the Democratic policies. Gender ideology comes to mind. You know, a lot of Dominicans, we believe that there is a man and one woman, but we're not allowed to say the opposite in our community because every single elected official in our community is a Democrat. And every single elected official in the Dominican community in New York follows or toes the Democratic line. You don't do that, they pretty much cancel you. So cancel culture was real in our community. So myself, along with a group of, I keep calling them patriots, we decided to say no, to put a stop to that. No, we're in America. When we came to this country, they told us this is the land of the free, the home of the brave. And we were not living, at least in my community, we were not living up to those standards, or up to what they tell us that America was about. So we decided to form the Dominican-American Republican Club. Now elections being over, we continue our work. Our goal in the Dominican-American Republican Club is just that: let our community know that there's options. You just don't, usually when a Dominican person becomes a citizen, it's like an automatic thing. They register Democrat because it is the party of the Dominicans. That's what we pretty much were being told. Unfortunately for a lot of Dominicans, that is not the same party that at least I registered with 30 years ago. That party has deviated from its main goal. It used to be a working man's party. It didn't have this agenda, this ultra liberal socialist agenda that we see now that has engulfed the party. So what we're trying to do now is we're trying to register those defected Democrats, those conservative Democrats. I don't know if there's such thing, but what we're trying to do is just give our community another option. You just don't have to go sink and barrel everything that the Democrats say. So those are one of the main priorities that we do, or that we're doing right now, or the club. Um, and we now getting involved in the mayoral race. As you can see, this is we're at a crux in our city. Democrats now have openly embraced socialism. They just went full blown socialist. The SA, which is the Democratic Socialists of America, have gotten a grip of that party to the point that we're on the verge of becoming another Chicago, or another Philadelphia, another San Francisco. And we as Dominicans, have a big saying in this. There's 1 million Dominicans living in New York City right now. One out of every eight one out of every eight citizen in New York City is of Dominican descent or is Dominican, and that means that we have a say. This is our city in the sense that we can dictate how we want to be governed. And if we only have one party telling us this is what you got to do, and if you don't do it, then there's a problem. One tidbit that I can give you, and anybody that knows me, I was a police officer for 26 years, retired, and the police department itself, 6,000 Dominicans serving in the New York City Police Department. In the meantime, they actually tell us that it's a racist department. It's there to keep the community down, which is nothing even close to being the truth. But this is what the narrative of the Democratic Party tells us. So who else to tell the real story of the real service of Dominicans? So I, that's one of the reasons why we have the club. Now going forward, we the PRM is the biggest political party in the Dominican Republic. Obviously, one of the things that they wanted to do to their members is they want to bring every single mayoral candidate to come and speak to their members. Which is, I thought it was great. They reached out to us. We said, okay, great. I told Curtis, hey, Curtis, listen, I think this is this party is organized. They have a lot of members. I think it would be a good idea for you to come and speak at their membership meeting. And Curtis immediately said, yes, absolutely. I'll go. Apparently, when we started promoting it, somebody in the party, because something that's happening in our community, going back to that's why I give you that big long prelude. There are a lot of Democrats that are also part of that party. And I did not know that they had such a huge grip in the internal politics. You would think they wouldn't, because one thing has nothing to do with the other one. One is a party from the Dominican Republic, and the other is a party from here, the United States. So apparently there were some folks that put pressure on the president to cancel Curtis's event because he was the first one to go. The reason why Curtis was first is because he was the first to respond. So they put him first, but they feel that that's an unfair advantage to Cuomo and Eric Adams and Mandani, that they actually put pressure on the president, and he canceled, or I'm sorry, he postponed it. First, he told us it was canceled. Then, when we got back, when we got the media involved, and he started getting phone calls, he said the event is postponed. My sources right now are telling me that we have a Congressman, Adriano Espaillat, who has a lot of power in our community, that his operatives started making phone calls to the president, trying to stop Curtis from being the first one. They have no problem if he's second or third. He just can't be first. So
Okay.
that's some of the things that we're dealing right now. Exactly, exactly. So I had long conversations yesterday with the leadership of the party. We're going to try to bring Curtis back. I have not spoken with Curtis, so I can't say for certain if he is even going to come back. But I hope he does, because it serves them well. We're probably going to leave it for some time in October. As far as the club itself, on the September 17th, we are going to be endorsing Curtis. The Dominican diaspora is going to be endorsing Curtis in Washington Heights, and it's a very popular place up in Washington Heights, where a place that they usually use to endorse every political candidate. Mandani, Eric Adams was endorsed there. We're bringing Curtis Sliwa there to endorse him on September 17th. You'll probably be seeing our flyer coming up pretty soon. So that's like a pretty decent compromise, I would say.
What is the orientation of the Dominican party that you were talking about, the PRM?
Yeah, the Dominican-American Republican Club is we're Dominicans that have conservative values. We believe in small government. We believe in safety and security. We believe that there is one man and one woman, and we are trying to open the doors for all those Dominicans that have conservative values, that still believe in religion, to come and openly say, listen, nothing against anybody else. We have nothing against people that have a different sexual orientation. By all means, half of my friends, that's not what this is about. This is about you being able to have your First Amendment right to say and speak whatever you feel like it, as long as it doesn't offend or hurt anybody, without being canceled. And we saw a lot of that the last 4 years of the Biden administration. Either you agree with us 1,000%, or you don't agree with us at all, and you're canceled. That's it. And that's pretty much where we stand on this. We have people that are very conservative. We have people that are somewhat conservative, but we don't censor anybody. We're not here to do, provide that type of create that type of environment. I personally was a Democrat for 30 years. I'm so happy I left the party because it's like, it's like a big pile of rocks were on your shoulder. And once I left it, I felt pretty much free, and, I see it with my friends, they have to watch what they say. They have to, see who they take pictures with. It's just a big, mean girls environment that you have on the other side, if you will.
Okay, but that's your organization.
Correct.
But I was also asking what the orientation of the Dominican party that you were talking about is,
Oh, I'm
because
sorry. I'm sorry. Okay.
there are a
Okay.
few different parties at play here, right? So I just
Great.
want to understand how this all fits together.
Thank you for the clarification. Yes. So what happens is obviously you can't form the parties, political parties, foreign the political parties here in the United States. That's against the law. So what they do is that they form a what you call, and all the communities do that, not just my community. They form a social club where they discuss politics. And the social club, it's a 501c3 organization, and they bring the people in. As far as the orientation, political parties in the Dominican Republic do not follow the same structure that we do here. Over there is more like socially, like, you can have, they don't have, okay, we are the conservatives and we're going to belong to this party like you have here in the United States. The more conservative people usually are Republicans, the more liberal folks are Democrats. That's not the case in the Dominican Republic. It's pretty much traditional, where who your family supported, whether, you're going to get something good from the government, or what are the proposals that the government is going to do with the community. So that's how they kind of structured. It's not along ideological lines. If I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. So as far as this party is concerned, their ideological line is more of, developing the country. Let's, get to the 21st century. Let's, we in the Dominican Republic, tourism is big. Let's develop our tourism. And That's their line. The other parties, I'm not going to particularly know. They're very small parties right now. That's why I was very excited to have Curtis come, because these guys are very, or, PRM, which is the party we're talking about. They're very organized, and they're the biggest here in the United States. They have the most members. So it would benefit Curtis to come and, have a conversation with them. I don't know if I answer your question, but
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand how
right.
all these different parties relate to each other. So it's not really that the PRM has a particular political orientation that was, averse to Curtis Sliwa. It's that there were other people. You're kind of the PRM presence here was kind of a hub for both your club and other Dominicans who have other political persuasions, and it was those other Democratic leaning Dominicans who went to the PRM, but it's not the PRM itself that is particularly politically for or against Sliwa. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Well, no, I wouldn't say against. Is that they're probably pro Mandani, pro Cuomo. I know they are involved in politics in the Dominican Republic. Like us personally, the Dominican-American Republican Club, we don't follow the party politics of the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
We don't do that. But they are Republicans that are members of the PRM, just as there's many more Democrats that are members of the PRM. As you know, Dominicans have dual citizenship. They can vote in elections here, and they can vote in elections in the Dominican Republic as well. So, that those that are Democrats that are part of the PRM, they were the ones that were having a problem. And some of these folks are connected with the Eric Adams campaign. They're connected with Mandani campaign. As a matter of fact, there are a couple of elected officials that belong to the PRM that support Mandani. So I don't know. I'm not going to say that they had a saying in this, but that's how connected the party is with the community.
Right, right. So, Mamdani, I think it's fair to say he's the strongest contender right now in the mayoral race. He's the front runner.
Yes. We can
And
say that. That's what they're telling us. Yeah.
that's what they're telling us. Yes, that's what
Yeah.
the pollsters are saying. That's what the media is saying.
Correct.
Um,
Correct.
the reality on the ground may be another matter, but that's what we're hearing.
Yeah.
So, but the pitch that he's
Yeah.
making, that Mom Donnie is making, is all about affordability, economic issues. Um, why do you reject that?
Well, affordability at the expense of whom? You know, affordability sounds nice. Equity, all those words are buzzwords. They sound nice. Believe me, I fell for them. But affordability, according to whom and how the math doesn't add up. You know, because let's face it, you know, he talks about socializing grocery stores. You know the thousands of Dominicans that made it to the middle class because they put up a grocery stores, and I'm talking about thousands of Dominicans, and now all of a sudden, you know, our elected officials and the Dominican elected officials and the Democrat Party is telling us that yeah, this is the way to go. So how many people are you cutting off here? You know, and or and not just necessarily Dominicans. You know, right now these stores are pretty much being bought up by people from the Middle East. You know, these people are good taking their families into the middle class as well. You know, my dad owned a grocery store and he was able to help my family out, you know, and I was able to do something better for my kids, you know, follow the American dream. Um, there is right now, there's no explanation how as to how this is going to work. And let's say, you know, okay, we're going to tax the rich. Well, what is the rich going to do? The rich is going to pack their stuff and they're going to leave. What happens to that tax base? That tax base is going to go down because they're not going to be able to collect the revenue. So I'm again, I know it sounds great, and this is what I tell my community. You guys, this all sounds great. You know, housing for everybody, rent stabilized. How is it going to actually get implemented? You know, and I have serious concerns. On top of the fact that you know he's constantly made statements about and the police. And again, I said 6,000 Dominican police officers in New York City. How are you going to keep us safe? And the first time an incident happens where it involves a questionable actions from the police department, how are you going to handle this? You know, because that's very important. How you handle your first incident is going to dictate what your relationship with the police officers. You have a negative relationship with the police officers, you're not putting the police, you know, you're not I'm not, for a lack of a better word, you're not upsetting the police. You're actually putting in danger the community. So Zoran has a lot of questions in my mind that he needs to answer before, you know, they come up with like great words that sound great. It's all going to be nice and dandy, but we've tried it in other places. It hasn't worked. What makes him think it's going to work here in New York?
So, when you first started talking about the club and its concerns, you brought up a lot of social concerns, you know, freedom of speech, opposition to, let's call it, gender ideology. Um, what what are the other major issues that you're hearing from members of your club and the Dominican American community in general, just in terms of this, what they want to see this election bring them? What are the big changes?
Well, law and order. We want safety. Definitely, that's the number one issue. And again, you know, we put on the ballot a an amendment to our constitution where a school teacher has more rights than a parent when it comes to getting your kid treatment. Parents have no rights here, you know, and that's something that should be alarming. It goes under the radar, but that's a concern, you know, with some of my members. Right now, if a 14-year-old tells a school teacher that he feels he's an opposite sex, the school teacher has the right to seek treatment for this kid and not notify the parents. I mean, that's something that you know. I know at least four of our members who are school teachers. That is horrific. Our community doesn't know that. As a matter of fact, I don't think that many communities know that, and there's no way that anybody in this world is going to love a child more than their parents. Have we had incidents that where, parents have been abusive? Of course. That's a very few minority. The vast majority of parents love their kids, and I can tell you probably 100% of my friends, they would probably they'll commit a felony if something is done to their kid and they don't know anything about. So that's an issue that's flies under the radar, but it's very big in our community.
Are you talking about a state law? Is that what you're referring
Well,
to?
we had right now we had on the ballot. Um, I forget the name of it, and it'll come to me. But we had on the ballot, on the back of the ballot, an amendment to our constitution to add gender to our constitution. I forget what the
I think they called it the Equal Rights.
there you go.
I think
Yeah,
they called it the Equal Rights Amendment.
it was something along the lines that if you hear it, you think it's wow, very nice. These people, but once you actually read the fine print, it should be alarming to everybody.
They
Yeah,
they added protected categories that are protected from discrimination under the state constitution. So they added
they
age and gender identity and several other things, I think.
correct, which opened the door, obviously, for this to happen. I already heard one case where it came close to this happening, and mom stepped in, and just imagine a parent getting notified that because their kid is getting treatment, they weren't even consulted under the equal rights. So this is where the slippery slope that we go under, and this is all brought in by one party, and that's the danger of having one party, what I call in my community a one party system. You always got to have that the opposite voice, yeah, just to hear the other side. That's a balance that you create. But when you have only one party, what you end up doing is you end up getting into an echo chamber where everybody speaks the same, even when things are not don't even sound right. But since you're in that echo chamber, you can't even listen to the other side. One thing that's huge in my community is immigration. A lot of people think that Dominicans are open immigration. Those are the Dominican elected officials because that's the party line. But Dominicans, they want immigration law enforced. They don't care if it's a Dominican person that's here illegal. And I'll tell you, that would almost 8 out of 10 people, and I'm talking 80-20 here, an 80-20 issue. People are thrilled the fact that Donald Trump closed the border. And now it got rid of a lot of migrants that weren't supposed to be here. Sanctuary city is big on our community. We don't want a sanctuary city. We don't want people inhumanely deported, but if you're not supposed to be here, you're not supposed to be here. And we Dominicans, we relate to this because we're having the same open border issues in the Dominican Republic. As you know, our island is shared with the country of Haiti. So those issues come up. We know what being illegal and what not having your proper documents is. So it's not like we are foreign like some other countries. So those are things that are, very big in our community. We're thrilled the fact that when Donald Trump came, he closed the border. You can see safety in our subways increased by tenfold. Now, it's not safe, but it's safer than when it was because we have a lot of folks that are not supposed to be here committing crimes are not here.
What is the can you give us a sense of the controversy within the Dominican American community between Mamdani supporters or just Democratic supporters in this election, and people who are supporting Sliwa like yourself? I mean, what is the argument on the other side? Like, what is the tension over? Because you're saying like there's been this huge shift, um, on the basis of immigration policy and interest in small businesses. But like, what are the points of contention in the community?
Well, no, just that. What happens is our community supported Eric Adams. I'm not going to say that our community is pretty much politically savvy. They know a lot about policies. They know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're probably very low information voters in my community. They rely a lot on what they hear in the news and what some of the elected officials, elected leaders tell them. So, and when I tell you that they have a huge grip on the information space in our community, they do. So, if you ask an average Dominican person that's supporting Mandani, I'm not going to tell you he doesn't know, but they won't give you the details other than he's going to bring, he's going to make, rent cheaper, and he's going to bring prices of gas down, things that are not really true. I don't know. I'm not, and let me make this clear. This goes with every community. I don't want to say that just the Dominican community. A lot of communities, in general, have the population is not and a population that's informed. So what we tend to do is we go with the flow. We go, okay, this is the new thing, or this is where we're all going, and we're all like the herd. We just follow the herd. I'm trying to break that, and I'm not going to tell you it's easy. It has not been easy, but this is where we need to start breaking from the norm. One of the things I think I mentioned it earlier: when you become a citizen, automatically you register Democrat because that's what everybody does. I did it. A whole bunch of people did it. No, we want to make sure that there people know that there are choices. I don't know if I answered your question, but I can tell you that with Mandani, what's being said in our community is just that he's going to make everything affordable and he's going to make everything cheap. And it just doesn't work that simple. It's not that simple. All right, and since we're all going to be voting for him, that's what we're going to do. So with Cuomo, obviously Cuomo has his supporters that worked with him, and they're still supporting him. There's a smaller section in our community, and Eric Adams, who was very popular among Dominicans, and many of them dropped him soon as Mandani won because that's the flavor of the month right now. Um, has lesser support as we speak.
So I was this past week I was down in Brooklyn covering a meeting at the Donald J. Trump Kings County Republican Club there. And that club and their members are enthusiastically backing Curtis Sliwa. At the very end uh, of the meeting, there is, you may know David Rem. He has run for mayor himself in the past. And he stood up and he said, "No, we have to support Cuomo. He's the only one who can win." And everyone disagreed with him and said, "No, no, no, you're wrong, Sliwa, Sliwa." Um, but there are people, a lot of people saying, only Cuomo can beat Mamdani. He's, otherwise it's a lost cause. Um, you disagree with that, right? You're disagreeing that Cuomo should be that everyone should align behind Cuomo even if they don't like him. Why do you disagree with that point of view and David Rem?
Oh well, David Rem is he's a character. Well, no, I mean we played this movie before. You know, Cuomo already ran against Mandani and lost. What makes him think now all of a sudden that especially the Republicans are going to support Cuomo? I mean, whoever believes that really does not understand the Republican electorate. Cuomo. I mean, some Democrats do not like Cuomo. Cuomo is despised by so many Republicans in this city. Just the fact that the way he handled the pandemic was one of the things that probably one of the main reasons why a lot of Republicans do not like Cuomo. We played the movie before. Um, he is no conservative. He brought us cashless bail. He was the pretty much where it started, and half of the half of the policies that we have in New York State are just continuation of his policies. Kathy Hochul, let's face it, she wasn't going nowhere until she took office, and then she just followed whatever Cuomo had in place. So to think that all of a sudden we are going to, even if Donald Trump, and I tell this to everybody, what Donald Trump comes down tomorrow and endorses Cuomo, what are you going to do? And I tell people all the time, we're going to vote for Curtis Lewa. We're going to support Curtis Lewa. He is the Republican candidate. He is the one that is talking to our issues. He's the only one that's talking about public safety and the fact that we need a cleaner New York. He's the only one that has actually taken a bullet for this city. So that's not something that we are gonna, we're hedging on. No, no, we're firmly behind Curtis Lewa for mayor of New York City. I don't think, not Eric Adams and not Cuomo are gonna probably make us change our endorsement of him.
So we have seen this movie before with Trump, where all the pollsters say, you know, Hillary Clinton has it in the bag, or you know, uh, or New York City is so overwhelmingly Democrat that you just won't see a Trump vote there. And of course, we saw Trump win against Clinton, and we saw in the last election a surge of votes for Trump in New York City. Right, that was not necessarily expected in the polls. So, are you saying that we're going to see a similar unexpected groundswell of support for Curtis Sliwa that is not being picked up by the major media and pollsters?
Yeah, well, yeah, I believe part of it is that's going to be the case. At the end of the day, there's still a lot of undecided voters that I believe are going to eventually break for Curtis. Let's face it, this is a very odd elections, and we have four candidates, and I believe this is one of his best chances for any Republican. If you have all these four candidates in, there is a chance. But what we strongly believe, especially from my community, and by the way, you mentioned something about the vote surge for Trump, and that a lot of that surge came from my community, the Dominican community. If you look at the Bronx, Upper Manhattan, all those areas that voted for Trump, they are all heavy Dominican areas. We believe that if Curtis campaigns the right way, with the right message, I believe that surge will happen for Curtis. Remember, a lot of people are not paying attention right now. We're in the middle of summer. Usually, things start heating up after Labor Day. Now, getting as we get closer to elections, and after Labor Day, that's when you see things getting ramped up. People actually started to see who's who, what's what. I believe that there's going to be a growing discontent with Mandani. They're going to realize mm, there's going to be buyer's remorse. That's what I'm thinking. So, um, I mean, Mandani's never held a job in his life, and a lot of people don't know this. Is a great feel good story right now. But I believe at the end of the day, people are going to come to their senses and they're going to vote for the real New York. And then in that case, it's Curtis Lewa.
All right. Before I let you go, is there any issue, really important issue in this election, in this campaign, that I haven't asked you about, especially for the Dominican American community, that you want to bring up?
No, well, I think I mentioned most of the issues that we care about, but law and order is at the top. We want a candidate that is committed to keeping New York safe. And we believe that Curtis Lewa is the only candidate, really speaking, to that one issue. I mean, there's many issues that we got to tackle in New York. I haven't even, spent time talking about education and how we spend the most money in America. But that's for another occasion. But I would say public safety and education are two issues that we really care about.
Okay. And where can people find more information about your club and and hopefully a future event where you'll host Curtis Sliwa.
Yeah. Well, right now we're working on our website, so that's to be announced. But we are on the social media. Our next event is December 17th. The Dominican diaspora is going to be endorsing Curtis Sliwa up in Washington Heights. And
You mean September?
I'm sorry,
I
September.
heard December.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, I keep
September
saying December. I
17th.
don't know why. September 17th. I'm sorry. September 17th, 809 Lounge in Washington Heights, 112 Dykeman Avenue. We will be endorsing Curtis Sliwa. It's going to be an event packed with a lot of folks that are going to be telling their stories on how they're supporting Curtis and how Curtis is going to take New York back.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me to talk about all of this.
I appreciate it. Thank you.